All right, so this has become one of my favorite topics about the evolution of neurodivergence. So, what does neuro mean? Just neurological functioning, and divergence means difference in path. So, here's a very big, broad snapshot. So, it's basically an evolutionary term which is not viewed as a collection of errors, but there's adaptive principles that ensure the survival of early human groups through cognitive specialization. So I'm sure you've heard like people with ADHD are known as hunters, and people with autism are known as scientists. And so I'll kind of break down what this means and how each brain itself, not a disorder, but how each brain had to go through time and adapt to certain functioning. So the evolutionary origins and and the evolutionary theory suggests that this condition persists because they offer special benefits to a collective cognitive ecology of a tribe or a clan. So think of indigenous people. So ADHD, the hunter rule, traits like hyperactivity and rapid attention shifts were advantageous for nomadic species, right? The best hunter would help the tribe. Individuals like ADHD act as scanners, quickly detecting predators or spotting new food sources, while others are focused on specific tasks. So they can look at things in a very big picture. Now, a person with autism also existed at that time. So traits like intense focus. So they're known as the systemizers, but I think of them as scientists, right? So their traits are intense focus and pattern recognition, which were crucial for precision tasks. You know, like if there was like something that required a special need, they would have to have ability to pay attention to specific details. Autistic individuals likely excelled at tracking animals, but not so good at hunting them. So they would work hand in hand often with someone with ADHD. Recognizing seasonal botanical patterns and pioneering technical tools or agricultural motivations. So they were kind of known as a scientist. And ID and developmental delay are not always linked to a specific task role. These conditions play a vital role in social evolution. Caring for vulnerable members boosted early human social and emotional intelligence. So those that were struggling would create a lot more empathy in other people, especially since they were in tribes. So therefore, their utility is dependent on how severe the condition is, but they foster a high level of group cooperation, empathy that defines their species. So other evolutionary roles, right? So that's why there are many up and coming groupings of neurodivergence. But bipolar disorder would be another evolutionary role, not necessarily neurodivergent, because the hardware is the same as someone neurotypical. So the intense energy and creativity associated with this condition have thought to be driven social and artistic innovations, helping groups bond and develop shared cultural identities. But I think that with bipolar, so in my opinion, it's very episodic, so it's hard to have something that consistent and creative, because on the flip side of mania, which is the creative part, that it was very sporadic. So compared to ADHD, there was not a lot of follow through in terms of like, okay, I'm gonna one day do this and I'm gonna retract and be depressed. So schizophrenia-like traits, some researchers suggest that individuals with altered perceptions may fill a role as spiritual or cultural leaders, right? So shamans, or they have unique insights that push their boundaries of early philosophical religious thought. So keep in mind, back then, they didn't really know what any of this meant. So they thought, okay, the person that was a shaman was talking about all this stuff, he might have actually had schizophrenia. So let's talk about the advantages and disadvantages of ADHD and autism, because there is I have seen more of a neurodivergent mix than anything because I've never seen one person that only has ADHD and one person that only has autism. Because people that are classified autism, 80% of them have ADHD, right? So that's why when the FDA put people on antipsychotics, it didn't make sense because it made them worse. And so people with ADHD, they often have a lot of autistic traits. So like one would be broad autistic phenotype, which means you have a sprinkling of traits of autism that prevent your ADHD from being really hard to manage, right? So those are why there's high achieving people with ADHD that have some autism in them to keep them regulated, and high achieving people with autism that have ADHD. So it makes them think, like a little bit less linear. So ADHD is a high energy, risk taking, creative. Okay, so ADHD is high energy, risk taking, creative, quick decision making, and outside of the box problem solving. And the advantage of autism is exceptional attention to details. You can see it with kids that look at wheels and content like very, very specific. Strong long-term memory, pattern recognition, and specialized technical skills. The disadvantage of ADHD is difficulty with modern structured environments like school or office requiring sitting and sustained attention. So that's one of the pushes is to alter the environment for the kid because they are very smart, but they just can't work in that environment. So for autism, significant challenges with social navigation, which is seen early in the development of the right side of the brain in people with autism. So significant challenges in social navigation, sensory processing, and difficulty in sudden changes in routine. The modern perception increasingly views the disability aspect of these conditions as an evolutionary mismatch, where they were once great and became survival tools. Now in this current environment, it's not designed for those benefits. So that's why it's seen as a disorder, but it's not a disorder. It's how the brain evolved in different people a long time ago. But I don't think of ADHD and autism as deficiencies, because with ADHD, once you control the limited amount of dopamine, they can function very well. In fact, they're very high achieving because they can use a lot of the right brain to like learn more. And and then with autism as well, it really depends. The difference is the ability to express and socialize a little bit harder. But both these conditions have something called rejection sensitive dysphoria, meaning like, in a regular classroom, like no matter what they do, they might get in trouble for getting on their seat, but they don't know these rules. Okay, so if you have any questions about this video, you're more than welcome to ask me. Thanks.